What's up, guys? So I want to start this podcast by saying one thing, and it's that shit posting works. And not only is there a question later on in this episode that has to do with shit posting and memes and the entire meme culture around content and on the internet, but we want to start this with a little bit of news. Jonas mentioned it right before we went live, and it's that Elon recently, or not Elon, it's not like I don't know if he personally did it, but Twitter Twitter has recently changed their like logo. I don't know about their favicon,
The
but
pre
they've
the
changed it to Doge.
preloader. Like
Yeah, the
once you hit
preloader.
twitter.com in your browser, if you use it on the web, then you're now greeted by the Doge. Is that the good
Yeah,
pronunciation, Ron? Doge?
yeah, Dogecoin. The Dogecoin. I don't know if it's Dogecoin, but definitely the dog from Dogecoin.
Yeah.
So a little bit of context. I think there is like an impending or an attempted lawsuit about him for doing some like I don't know, fraud or something with Dogecoin, and there's like a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit, and I don't know what's going on with that, but basically Elon has kind of become like the trailblazer in memes, and I don't know, say what you want about him, he's great. It's his Twitter account is very funny, very worth a follow. Jonas, you sent us this sent us this really funny image just now, where it's a picture of of a person in a car with the head of the Doge, and a cop is looking at his ID, and it has Twitter on it, and then he's like, "That's an old
Twitter bird.
photo." So
Yeah, the Twitter bird, the good old bird. Yeah.
yeah, so
Gone
we'll put it in
for
the
the
show
time
notes for
being.
you guys. I thought it's funny because I don't know. I mean, it works, man. It does grow your following. It grows your attention. Yeah.
I mean, he's just a stunt man, like a meme stunt man. Elon is really. I guess there are there are few billionaires who are better proof of the power of meme culture. If you know how to play it, he certainly is super good at succeeding it, understanding the mechanisms of gaining attention, building a followership, polarizing, and all that goes into it. And he has built an empire based on being good at it, right? Like Tesla is already so much driven by the followership of Elon Musk and the cult around him. And even though now maybe the tides have turned a bit and we are in a phase where many people who used to love Elon now hate him after he acquired Twitter and so on and so forth, he still is creating so much buzz, so much awareness, and let's see if he will be able to still turn it into good business. But so far, like he's a master at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if the Elon hype will ever slow down again, at least a bit. I mean, he's doing his best to not have that happen. Um, but yeah, I mean, you gotta admire that guy towards his skill, like because on the one hand he masters shit posting, like basically is second to none. On the other hand, if you check out long form interviews and outs of the photovoltaic industry with Solar City. He knows the ins and outs of rocket ships and all the dynamics and mechanics behind it, down to the first principles. I While everybody says he has no clue about software, I would reckon he knows more about software than most people do, given he was one of the co-founders
Yeah.
of PayPal and all of that stuff. So I think he knows a thing
Yeah.
or two about software as well. And yeah, I wonder when he
I
sleeps.
think Jonas, I think he's truly our generation's like biggest showman, if you think about it. Like he mastered the art of like internet attention, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Like Thomas said, this I'm happy you said the word cult, Thomas, because it like he does truly have a cult of following. I used to work in the electric vehicle industry for a competitor of Tesla, actually, and yeah, like there was this like allure around Elon. Every time we would talk about Elon, most of the people at my company came from Tesla, and the way they would talk about him is like he's just this like amoebic man. He has this just like aura. He's yeah, like he built a cult following, right? Like
Yeah.
from a product point of view, is Tesla really a farly superior product? Debatable.
And whatever you think
Call
about
this
him
like
as a
I'm
guy, I mean, he still has has achieved incredible results, right? Like with
Yeah.
Tesla building it. So many people doubted back in the day that he could ever scale up production to any levels, and now guess what? They are selling not enough for the production they put out. So new
Allegedly.
problems allegedly, who knows? But I guess the SpaceX achievements. I mean, of course, it's not Elon by himself, but he initiates these projects. He acquires the talent. He has quite a knowledge by himself. So think of him and his public persona what you will, but the guy knows what he's doing. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
It's not an
What is
accident.
No.
the term? I'm missing it. For somebody that is a master in several domains, like a universal.
Like a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, but there's like a like with Italian origin.
In
Like back in the day when people used to be inventors and physicists and
I know the
mathematicians and
German term
engineers
you're looking
all
for.
at once, and there's a
I mean,
dedicated term for it. Yeah,
Yeah, the German one is Universalgelehrter. I also
yeah.
don't know the English
okay.
term. But let's see if I translate the Wikipedia article. Oh, polymath, of course. This one
Yeah,
you
a
would
Okay.
know, no?
polymath. Exactly.
Yeah,
But hey,
yeah.
on that
Yeah,
note,
truly.
Ron, I think we got questions, no?
Yeah, we got some questions. As I mentioned, there is a question that does cover this as a topic. So if it does seem like we're ranting into the nothingness or if it's not relevant, I promise you it is. But guys, we're going to go ahead and get into the first question. And it comes from F1 Data Analysis. So that's the name that was given. Seems to be anonymous. But they do have a Twitter account. So the question, I'll just go ahead and get into it. Which is a good way or platform or approach to find collaboration proposals from the industry? Anything from media partnerships to companies that would like to do sponsored content are relevant. That's everything for now. And they basically do technical analysis of performance and cars for F1, Formula One. And there's nobody better to do this question or to handle this question than Jonas. He's our resident F1 man here at Liquidity Team.
Motorsport
Yeah. So
expert.
if it's almost a sport, Jonas loves it. Just
Yep.
kidding, Jonas.
Well, I did look it up, and yes, seems to be anonymous, but the channel is called exactly what you just read, so F1 Data Analysis. And I did take a look at your content. It's pretty nerdy stuff, and we talked about niches before, and this I would consider almost a micro niche, because if the niche is Formula One, then this is the micro niche of people that are really nerdy about looking into stats, looking into the telemetry, and he does really great analysis there. So I personally dig this. Um, but that also, I guess, yeah, makes it a bit tricky to find people for set collaborations, because yeah, it's quite niche. Um, to your question, where do you like which platforms to use or to where to find potential collaborations? The obvious first step could be direct outreach to companies or media outlets that you know and where you think that's a great fit. I think with something that's specific as your content, maybe that's a good approach. And maybe,
Jonas,
yeah,
just real quick, I just want to add one little thing before you get too far
sure.
into it. Research, right? So like obviously research who those accounts are, where they spend their time, where they create content as well, people who are in maybe parallel industries. So first obviously just finding out who these people are, putting them onto a list, and then you know how to reach out to them, right? So then you would apply what Jonas is saying. Go ahead, Jonas. Sorry.
Yeah, all good, all good. So that's obviously the first approach, but also the least scalable, I would say. Then obviously there's a bunch of agencies out there that do exactly that. Basically, they work with brands on the one hand and creators on the other hand, and do basically matchmaking. Usually on the creator side, that yeah, it's fairly easy to get onboarded, and then there's some revenue share for all collaborations that go over this platform. But that might be also something worth looking into and just checking out what basically offers come across. Then one thing, a more specific idea is and I mentioned this earlier, maybe media outlets is a good thing for you. And that could create a sort of win-win situation. On the one hand, it would be authentic to have sponsored content by a publication that does F1 analysis anyways, or content around motorsports. On the other hand, they could use basically your analysis and put it into, let's say, more easily digestible content, because as you are probably aware, it talks to very specific people to look at, yeah, to look at this. So maybe they can basically dumb it down a bit, and make it accessible for a wider audience. That would be one thing. And then affiliate marketing. That was something that Ron also mentioned in one of the previous episodes. Thomas, do you want
Can
to
we
in?
be, yeah, before jumping to affiliate, I want to double down on the media partnerships point, but also give a bit more, uh, maybe a slightly different angle than what you just said, because like in my
Sure.
experience, what is hard, especially for creators who kind of compete with the type of media like sports, Formula One type of media, is to get in there and use them for distribution or partnerships for free. Usually, if the media has like the position, hey, we give you distribution, you need to pay us for this, and we will not pay you, then of course you could create content as a creator for them. But I think another approach with the super specialized, I mean I don't understand all the graphs that you are doing, so I'm probably not your audience, but it seems so specific to Formula One hardcore fans that I think media should almost be more like a market you could cater to, and start something like what I don't know, Ron, if you mentioned it, but he also wrote us that he's on Buy Me a Coffee, and you can join on Buy Me a Coffee to get a bit more access to analysis as a fan. But I think in there could also be a package where media companies pay you to use your content. And it reminded me of something that a guy called Ben Falk does. He has a website, formerly also a blog, now a stat service called Cleaning the Glass. And he's this guy who used to work for an NBA team and then started cleaning the glass as like a subscription. I think it's even just $5 a month, but everybody in the NBA, on the club side, on the side of media, of course, is subscribing to him. And I thought that has no rights to use the thing in your own packaging, but you could even work a bit with the licensing model and have a higher price tier where media can just use all your stuff, put their brand on it instead of this, and this could be a service in and of it all. That was what I thought about when I read media partnerships. But sorry for
Yeah.
jumping in, Jonas.
All good, all good.
Back to affiliate.
Yeah, affiliate marketing, obviously another potential revenue stream also. And here I think the entire sim racing domain might be a good market, because first of all, people that are really into sim racing, I don't know, either it's iRacing or proper F1, they're probably the type of people that look into your stats when, like, from lift and coast to all that stuff. That's the audience that understands it. And sim products are selling. I mean, try to get a Fanatec steering wheel these days, try to get a proper play seat. Like, these things are sold out everywhere, so there's obviously demand. And I guess having some affiliate links in your content or in your bio, wherever you want to place it, also in your in-depth analysis on Buy Me Coffee, that could be something. Maybe even iRacing or any of these brands would be down to do sponsored content with you. That's probably something where you do direct outreach again. And one last idea I had was sports betting. Obviously, like the stuff you do, I mean, in Formula One, it's always a bit hard to predict the race pace from free practice sessions and qualifying, because people might run different tests and not really go for the fastest lap they could. So the stuff you do might actually give you an edge in betting, and therefore maybe betting partners would be good, yeah, partners.
Yeah. I feel like it's pretty funny because like I do fantasy football, and like I've noticed that like the deeper I get into fantasy football, um the nerdier it gets, right? Like there's dudes on Twitter arguing about like the hand size of like a draft prospect, where it gets like that nerdy. And I guess like the takeaway is like find your nerd, or find your group of nerds, you know, like where are they? Find them and like sell to them. So it could be even something as simple as like, yo, per week, I'm going to do tech analysis on 3 drivers, and then I'm going to do 2 additional ones, and that's gated. And you got to pay for my subscription, or you got to, you know, pay for as a microtransaction to get access to that content. So that's like your direct to consumer route. And then you have like the B2B route, which is what like Thomas was talking about with like media. Yeah, you just got to find your nerd. Find who's willing to pay you for that info. Like the person that Thomas mentioned from the NBA. Thomas, I don't know if you might have said it, but is this dude like a quant? He does like quantitative like
Yeah,
metrics and okay.
yeah,
Yeah, so there's
absolutely.
tons of people. There might even be analytics teams on F1 teams that are like looking for
Potentially.
good data that they can crunch, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So find your
I,
nerd. Find the people who want it.
I mean that is that is I think the really good example of a content where you can very successfully create a paywall around it and find
Yeah.
people who find this so valuable that you do this. but but going back to the original question, and something, Jonas, you already mentioned, there are a lot of these influencer agencies, but of course they cater to a broad range of companies, many lifestyle products, and I don't know if that is the content that you are doing here that is the most suited to many of these types of campaigns. There are of course also talent agents focusing on creators, and because Jonas, I loved all the examples you gave for potential advertisers and affiliate partners. I also think because it's so specialized, it will be hard to find the one platform that does it. I also looked a bit around, and there is not something that I came across that is super suited to this. So if you don't want to have like these relationships with brands directly, because it's also work, it takes away from doing analysis and maybe the stuff you're really really good at. My question would be, who is a person well connected in the Formula One circuit, but also in the brands active around Formula One, and maybe could be a manager slash agent type for you who helps you with this, because I think it is so specialized. That would be my recommendation in that case. And especially because I think if you're so specialized, it can also perform exceptionally well if you work with the right type of brand.
Yeah.
And maybe one last thing that also came across, I put this in my personal notes. Attend race weekends. I mean, that's where the people meet in and out of the industry. That's where the fans go, and probably on a Friday in free practice sessions, that's where you find the people that are really either in the business of
The
Formula
nerds.
One or super interested, because most people show up for the Sunday race and that's it. I guess that's almost worth an investment to spend some money on, maybe even a paddock pass. And
Yeah.
yeah, you might
Networking.
even be able, with your following of 120,000 Formula One nerds on Twitter, there might be one or two people that can help you out with the ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Why not just tap into your existing audience and see if there's people who love your work.
Another example that comes to my mind when we talk about what are business models in that area of really nerdy specialized sports content. So as some of you may know, I'm into cycling. I'm following cycling, road cycling, that is. And there is this YouTube channel that everybody who follows cycling and racing a bit is Lantern Rouge, or the Lantern Rouge Cycling Podcast. And so the guys who do this, what they famously did in the case of one and still do in the case of the other, is they work for Jumbo Visma, which is one of the biggest, most successful teams in there. And they started as like video analysts doing stuff for this, and then became more like strategic consultants to a team. So while they also have a setup with fans who can join their channel on YouTube in their case, and then get access to a special Discord, there is also this way of going. Instead of working with advertisers, which they do, they've a handful of brands like Swift producing hardware in the realm that is a very good fit, and something else that I don't have top of mind. but then you can even work with the teams maybe if what you do sets you apart. Wouldn't be the first in the NBA analytics era, the first guys who had blogs and were on Reddit. Many of them were then hired by teams. And then in the case of Ben
Yeah.
Falk, after working for a team, went down the creator, setting up your digital business route super successfully as well. So that these are the cases that
Yeah.
came to my mind here.
We've said this on so many other podcasts. Before we move on, I'll just the cherry on top of Jonas's cherry, which was on top of Thomas's cherry. Like,
Cherries.
yeah, like your unfair advantage, right? Like this is your unfair advantage. You're like the king of the geeks, right? Like in every niche, there's. I hope you're not taking that as an offense of geekiness. I mean that in a good way. Like you're the king of like the people who really know their shit about a certain category, and I think that's like super valuable. It's a very unfair advantage that you have that very few other people probably have. So just leverage that, and yeah, find your nerd. And on that note, I won't let anyone add any more cherries on top. So we will move on to the next question. All right. So, question 2, this one's going to be for Thomas. And it comes from Frank. Frank says, I worked in journalism for the last 15 or so years. For the longest period of this stretch, I've been an editor for travel industry trade publications. Now my last employer shut down, and I think media is in a bad place, especially those type of trade publications. So I decided I'll go independent. My current thought is that I'll start a blog or a podcast. But here's my question. I've mostly been writing pieces in the 1,500 to 5,000 word range. Today, people would call it long form, I suppose. It's definitely where I feel I'm best at, as I can go deep and provide some real insights. But I've heard so many people talk about shortened attention spans and how vital short form content is. So I almost feel pushed to do shorter things for my own project. What would you recommend? And can you shine a light on long versus short form? Frank, I could tell you love long form because even just this question made my mouth go dry. Thank you for the question, Frank. And he's a soon-to-be creator.
Can you give me? I don't quite understand travel
All right.
industry trade publications.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, so as I will go first on this question, let me tell you the following. I cannot speak a lot about the travel industry, but the trade publication is like I don't have the examples top of mind, but it's like a magazine for people in the hotel industry, like for people in the, tourism and so on. So these are magazines for people who work in the travel industry. Essentially, that's a trade publication. And yeah, again, I cannot speak to the travel industry part and the specificities of this because I don't know a whole lot about this. But what I did is really dig a bit into the numbers around short versus long form. Of course, it's an evergreen topic for people publishing on the internet, and I think I found a few really good studies and articles about this that I want to summarize for you. And I think the takeaway is you can definitely do long form if your topic is suitable to go long. So you mentioned you hear all the people talking about shortened attention spans. In particular, there's like one quote or statistic that became super viral and quoted in many places, like that from our attention spans have gone down to 8 seconds from formerly 12, like average attention spans, and it's now shorter than a goldfish. But there's a very good piece on BBC that completely debunked this for various reasons. So the first thing that you can debunk if you hear this study quoted somewhere is people who are researching attention. What they say is average attention span is not even a thing we would be researching because it doesn't exist. Attention is super task dependent, and depending on the task, attention varies, but also many factors, even on one specific person, influence how much
Too many
attention
variables.
you have. Like if you're super tired, your attention span is shorter than on another day. For instance, when driver attention spans, that is something that is researched. We know like attention decreases with decreases as fatigue increases. and all these factors. So nobody measures it. That the study that is from the same BBC article, we can put it in the show notes. They try to find the study where it comes from. In the study where that is usually attributed to, it's only a quote to a thing, and this thing is not reachable. And the other studies they quote, if you call them, they have no idea where the number could come from. So essentially, it's a bullshit number.
Let me throw in one additional thing that I just heard recently, and I thought,
Yeah, please.
Basically, it was about the success of the Joe Rogan experience, and it's arguably the
3
most
hours.
one of the most successful podcast formats there is, and it is on average like 2.5 to sometimes 4 hours.
Yeah.
And people, I mean, and it's all not even that people just watch the first 10 minutes and then exit, but people watch the whole thing.
I'd be so curious to see Joe Rogan's like average view time.
Mhm.
I bet it's high as fuck. Yeah.
It's also the kind of stuff that you can start and then you kind of prep a meal on the
Come
side
back
and
later.
you don't and
Yeah.
you don't pay attention the entire time, but it's like running on the side, and then when the keyword comes up, you pay full
You
attention
tune
again.
back in, like
Yeah.
radio back in the days, and then you can also pause. I mean, I listen to a lot of long form stuff myself, and I don't always have the time to do it in one go. But then I listen to 20 minutes here, 10 here, 15 there, 20 there,
Yeah.
and then the episode is done.
That's the beauty of on-demand content, right? Whether it's
Exactly.
written, video, it doesn't matter. Like, you shouldn't
Exactly.
worry too much about the length.
And by the way, another thing to debunk from this study, goldfish attention span, nobody measures it. We cannot measure it reliably, and there are, on the contrary, studies who measure like learning ability of goldfish. So poor goldfish, they have a bad reputation. Probably they can learn much more than we think and have much better attention spans. Anyways, that is on this study and quote. And then
Now
I
you know,
found
Frank.
something.
Yeah,
Now you
Frank.
know. Yeah. And now we have like this other topic of how does long form content work nowadays. And I found something pretty recent from Google. They have this thinkwithgoogle.com publication, and there was a good write-up and summary of statistics, a lot based on YouTube, but in our case that's very relevant, even though you talk about podcasts. Frank, I think YouTube watching behavior and podcast listening behavior, if anything, then YouTube leans maybe a bit more on average to shorter stuff than podcasting. And yet they basically brought up that long form content performs increasingly better. One good point that they made, and that is almost going back to the question before, they write about how super fans now really enjoy going deep, and they watch, like, after a series, new episode of a popular series aired, there are a bunch of like recap things that are probably 2 hours after a 1 hour series, and they get millions of views. They also mention football content where like pre and post game YouTube channels get like 500,000 viewers in certain cases. So I will put the link in the show notes as well. And they have data about searches for video essays, and these have gone up considerably over the last years. And then the worst reputation probably is after, okay, goldfish have the worst, but then Gen Z, they are also very often called like they have no attention span. But 59% of Gen Z people watch longer versions of video after they discover something on short form video apps. And YouTube, of course, now having shorts, I think capitalizes on this and proves the point. You can use short form to convert people
Like
to
an
long
acquisition
form.
channel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And another study that I found looks into how professionals like content that is important to their professional role. And I have this nice graph which I will link to as well in the blog post that comes along with this episode. We can also put the graphic in there, but it essentially shows that people really like longer formats and presentations, all kinds of formats that are longer leaning, that have substance to it. And that of course goes to what Frank is asking, right? Because he talks about trade publication content, and many people like in-depth substantial content when it comes to their professional domain as well. So long story short, all this is a good indicator for me that you should not worry about going long, if especially if that is what you're good at, right? Like being good at long form is not so easy because you need to cut out all the bullshit. Like it's not about producing words to produce words. It's really about still being concise, but if you can do this, but just put more substance into it, go a bit deeper, so that the nerds Ron was talking about before, they like your stuff, they enjoy it, then I think you're on the good track. And Jonas, Rogan is a good example on the entertainment side, but many of the most popular newsletters on the web, like we talked last episode about money stuff from Matt Levine,
Levine.
Stratechery, all this is long form written content in this case. And in podcasting, I looked a bit for average length. You find weird data points with wide ranges, but the fact of the matter, most of the stuff that is quite popular, be it in sports, be it Joe Rogan, is around the 1 hour mark, often even going longer than 1 hour. And it seems to work just fine as these formats are very successful. Um, and in written content that might not be super relevant for you if you only want to podcast, but given that you have been a writer before, um, I still want to bring it up and mention it, especially because turning episode content into something that is in writing, of course, makes a lot of sense. For instance, from SEO, search engine optimization standpoints. And here I found really interesting data. Google and other search engines really seem to rank content that is more than 2,000 words higher than short form content. So you have a SEO search engine advantage essentially. And vice versa, there was a study that I found where they asked bloggers which content had strong results for you in terms of viewership and audience, and there 56% said more than 2,000 words, which was the top ranked, and everything that was shorter was less. So
just keep in mind, just a quick comment on that though. I think there is like a complexity element there though too. So if a user has a question on for Google that's like a yes or no or like a quick piece of information they need, the longer your content, actually the worse it'll perform. But that might not even apply to you. So that's just a
yeah,
small
agreed.
note.
So don't. I think the final takeaway, and as a journalist, I would assume Frank knows this. Don't be long for the sake of being long, but if something requires to be long, don't be afraid of doing something that is long. It will most likely find its audience.
Yeah, yeah. I think how long it can be has like a direct correlation with how good it is, right? So if it's good, you can make it as long as you want. But if it's obviously, if you're just repeating yourself, you're going around in circles. If you're doing what I did in high school, where I'm adding like blank space that the teacher can't see just to hit that word count, people might have an issue with length. So yeah.
Yeah.
But one more comment on the nerd thing. I want to clear my name before I get DMs from anyone. Like I truly being a nerd, those are the people who pay, right? The nerds, your super fans, your ultra fans, those are the ones who are your true fans. We mentioned this in a couple of episodes. Your 100 or 1,000 true fans. I call those people nerds. They're not even
Yeah, but Ron, I don't think you need to apologize. The reputation of nerds and geeks has
true.
gone
We're at the
like
top
this
now.
now. Yeah, they are the cool kids on
We
the
run shit.
schoolyards
The
now.
Elon
Yeah,
Musks.
yeah, that's cool now. No
Yeah,
need to apologize.
true.
We're no longer in the 80s.
Yep. So, Thomas, do you want to pack that into a little content nugget that I can potentially use for social at some point?
Yeah, by the way, that of course is the cool thing about this, right? You can still do short form takeouts if you have good long form and
Yeah.
promote it. But yeah, I just wanted to ask you guys any thoughts that are like travel industry content specific. I guess not, but just in case you had something that you wanted to bring up, now's your chance.
I guess I'm not an expert either. While I did do a bunch of traveling, I rarely consumed travel content, but rather, yeah, took it from Google Maps and kind of
Yeah.
independent research. So, yeah, not an expert on all of this.
So I have sorry, Jonas. Were you going to
And in
keep going?
particular,
No, no.
he's talking about travel industry stuff,
Okay.
right? Like, I mean,
Yeah,
I come
yeah.
from my family used to run hotels, or still does, and they have there in Germany. We have, like, it's called AHGZ. It's like this newspaper format publication with news from hotels and updates from this and that, and analysis of these business models and things like this. And I guess, like all the stuff from our former episodes also applies to Frank, right? Like, find your niche, develop a good tone, make it interesting, and
Yeah.
then you can definitely succeed there. And
Then you
even,
also got the Dehoga magazine. That's something that
yeah.
used to sit
Oh
on our
yeah.
table. We mentioned this in an earlier episode. My parents also own a restaurant, and the Dehoga
Yeah.
is the Deutsche,
Hotel-
basically
und
community of
Gaststättenverband.
hotel and restaurant people, whatever. And there's
Well,
Yeah.
like a monthly magazine or whatever.
I was actually going to say something that maybe is related to that. So, as like the resident fat in the between the three of us, I love food, and I am a foodie, and I think that combining like travel with food is a great thing. But the overarching comment here is combine travel with X. So food just tends to work well. Like, I'm trying out the best pizza in Italy, blah, blah, blah. So combining niches, we mentioned this in a couple of other videos, but combining two categories that you would never think go together could be interesting. I always reference this beauty YouTuber. She does like makeup videos and makeup tutorials. And while she's doing it, she talks about true crime. She'll pick a random true crime case and just and talk about it the entire video. So those are two industries that you would think are complete opposites. I guess maybe not, because true crime is a female dominated category, right? So anyway,
I would think so. From
yeah,
personal experience, it seems
yeah,
to be more of a thing there.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so
So
good luck, Frank. I mean, soon to be creator. Let us know if and once you started. We will be curious to see what you're doing with this. And of course, if you want to do it on Unyfy, we would highly recommend this, especially for something like trade publication stuff. There is no easier way to make premium content and get it out there. That is plugging our stuff. And of course, you
yeah,
support our work if you do so. But let's jump to Felix, shall we?
yep. Felix and Frank, one more
Felix.
thing. If you do need someone to try any food, if you do food, send it my way. And on that note, Felix. So Felix is his name, and here's his question. Some of my favorite followers on Twitter are shitposters. So again, I mentioned we talked about Elon. This is where it comes. They have effectively used humor, sarcasm, and pop culture to grow massive followings. One strong example is at Trung T Fan. That's his Twitter handle. I would like to build a following doing something similar. Do you have any tips on doing something similar? And Felix is a marketing manager. He wants to grow his Twitter, and he talks about, or he specializes in business, copywriting, and marketing. Okay, so Felix, I have a couple of high level talking points when it comes to Twitter and just growth and engagement on social media in general. I want to start by saying, like, the internet has become really full of teachers and gurus and course providers. Everybody's trying to sell something to everybody now, especially on Twitter. It's become just like, it's seen, at least the part that I'm on, it's just like a cesspool of people selling stuff to each other. So that kind of addresses the reason that like shit posters or like humor type influencers have really started to sprout up and grow really strongly. It's because like they've yinned when everyone else has yanged, or they've zigged when everyone else has zagged. So they're doing something that the market desires and the market really wants. So that's why this meme type tone and this meme type of content really works, because it's just so different, especially in industries like startups, entrepreneurship, business. It used to be a real suit and tie type industry, right? So when you have somebody making a mockery like Elon does about like typically serious topics, it's funny, right? So that's why that works. Um, and then I have a couple of reasons why memes work so much. So memes are pop culture, right? So they usually reference something that's happening in the news. So you get a lot of reach and a lot of leverage because of that. So people are already searching for that type of thing. Think about like the Chinese balloon thing that happened in America, where they like shot down a balloon and it turned out to be from like a group of like science students from China or something. It was all over Twitter. People were making jokes about it. Pop culture, right? They're funny, obviously. They're relatable. So good memes are usually relatable, where everyone can see a good meme and say, "Ha, like I know exactly what they're referring to." They're shareable, so people can quickly share memes. There's no like, oh, do I have to give credit to this person? It's a meme. You just share it. It's an image. It's easy to digest, and it's
Also,
not another.
nobody expects a reply. If I just send a meme to a
Yeah,
friend, I just want him to acknowledge it,
just
and
like it.
I don't even expect an answer.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And importantly, crucially, it's not a teaching moment. People hate being always taught things, right? Like I'm on Twitter, some of the people I follow, all they do is talk about email marketing or copywriting best practices. Everything they tweet or say is that I'm doing something wrong, or it's some productivity tip about why I need to make my bed or else
Get
I'll never
even
be
more
successful in
out of your day.
business. Huh?
Get even more out of your day.
Yeah, exactly. So memes are a great way to kind of escape the way you're not meeting expectations, according to a lot of Twitter gurus. So that's why memes are awesome. And now let's talk about some basic strategies for how to grow on social media. We'll do Twitter to be specific, right? So the first thing I need to say, and I don't think even I do enough of this, is that you actually want to engage with people on Twitter. Think of social media as a social platform. I know that sounds like a crazy notion, but social media is social. Be social with people that you want to actually interact with and that you want to work with, right? Like um, if you're at a bar and you see a hot chick, you're not going to think about best practices to talk to her. You're going to just go up and talk to her, right? So yeah, just actually engage with people, DM people that you look up to, and ask them for tips. You'd be surprised how often that works. Um, Another thing, so structuring your profile, make it very clear what you're about and what potentially your unfair advantage is. So looking back at the first question that we had from the F1 technical analysis guy, write in your profile, make it very apparent what your profile offers, which I think you do on your Twitter. So you're making it very clear what your content's going to be about, what you offer, and why you're special in your little niche. Tweet 3 times per day. That's just something that you should do regardless of how big your Twitter is. And make sure to pin tweets or threads that have performed well in the past. That way, people can see some of your best content right when they reach your profile. And now, those are just like the basic things that you need to make sure you're doing or make sure you have set up. Now, let's just say you don't have 1,000 followers. If you're anywhere from 0 to 1,000 followers, the best ROI you're going to get is to do this. You find 10 of the biggest profiles or biggest accounts that you want to be like. So Trunk T Fan would be one. Find 9 more, or 5 or 6. It doesn't matter. Find a good amount of them. What you're going to do is you're going to set notifications so that you know when they tweet, you get a notification every time they tweet. What you're going to do is you're going to engage with their content and engage with other people's content organically, real. Like, be real. Don't just say, "Hey, nice tweet, follow." Like, don't be one of those, Russian bots
Bots.
or whatever. Yeah, don't
Yeah.
be a Bangladeshi bot. Um, actually engage with people, contribute to the conversation, contribute to the narrative, be insightful, be funny, use memes, use your shit posting here. This is when you can be funny, but don't attack people. Don't be mean. Don't be like, you're not going to make friends being an ass. You might make quiet shadow friends who like your shit because you're a shit poster. I don't know. But basically, that's what you want to do before you have 1,000. After 1,000 followers and up, basically what you're going to do is you're going to continue doing all of that, but you're going to increase the frequency of your tweeting and of your engagement, obviously. You're going to continue engaging with people, and you're going to tweet to big accounts. So as you start to grow and get bigger, you want to tweet to big accounts. What I mean by that is pretend like you're tweeting to those 10 people that you created, that list of 10 creators that you look up to. Pretend all of your tweets are to them. What are some ways that they might like your tweet? They might respond. You don't need to at them every time, but pretend like
Quite the
your tweets.
contrary. That's going to be counterproductive.
Yeah, don't at them. Don't like spam their DM or their inbox. But you want to tweet with the assumption that if they were to see this, would they retweet it or like it? And And basically the trickle down effect is that maybe their audience also would. So that's how you increase in followers, maybe get your stuff retweeted. So those are your basic things. Continue being funny and humorous. I think it'll work. And do some of those. Just think of it like homework. You got to do it every day. You have to show up. Showing up is oftentimes 90% of the battle, right? Most people quit. They stop tweeting. They stop trying. And yeah. Anybody else?
No, I think
Felt
you
long.
summed. I think you sum. I think you summed it up perfectly. I mean, when I read the question, I was super happy to have you because I think you have a grasp of what even this shit posting culture is. Because I don't know it too well, but I think yeah, what you say makes a lot of sense because especially to me Twitter used to be a different platform, right? To me Twitter is something where I followed a lot of people in niches that I'm interested in, and there are a few accounts that sometimes come across like one posts like shit, me fake news around the NBA that sometimes ends up, even though I don't follow this account, to show up in my thing. And I think that is the other thing you can know about Twitter. It's like it's not like Facebook where everybody is. Still, especially the active user base of Twitter that is not bots, I think is still very often somehow in the media industry, content industry, and so on. And they of course enjoy memes, everything that is a bit meta, that makes fun of news and current events and so on. And you need to cater to these people, but you can do this in all these niches, right? There is like I have many lists on Twitter, a tool that I use a lot. And I, for instance, have like a list of cycling people. I have a list of founders in startup people. I have a list of venture capital people. I have a list of reggae artists. I have a list of hip hop artists, and so on. I have all this stuff, and each I
Do you
bet
have
if I would,
lists, Thomas?
I have lists.
Yeah,
And I
cool.
think and I think if I would look around in these niches, everybody you in all these, you can have like a shit posting fun account that is really meta and educated about this, because I think it's work to be good at this. It's not
Yeah.
easy to do
But
it.
one question, because I always wonder, like I rarely use lists. I mean, I do have a few lists set up, but I don't actively maintain them.
Mhm.
But just consumer question: do you actively, when you use Twitter, or whatever, on the train or something, do you go like do you work off your lists one by one and check the news in every list, or how, like
No, never. No, never.
never?
I
But
don't.
Twitter should add something where you could do that.
You can do
Yeah,
this if you just click on the list. Then what you get is
Yeah.
all the
yeah,
latest
of course, but
content,
I
and
But
wonder
that's
if
not
anybody
native. It
does
doesn't
this.
feel native.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe one
no,
thing that I thought about, if you could basically just swipe your feed, like default would be a home screen, and then you swipe, and then basically you get a different feed based on your interest. Then you can just look through that. That might be cool. But in my user journey, the list doesn't appear.
Yeah.
I put
I
people
can
in there and then never check again.
I can tell you exactly how I use it, because to me it's just a sorting mechanism and a way to find people quicker. So I don't follow too many accounts, but I think if I open my Twitter, it's like 1,290 accounts that I follow, which is quite a lot. And if I want to re-find somebody, it's super useful to have these in a list. So it's more like a directory of people by type. And then especially is like sometimes I'm interested in one thing, I build a list, and then it goes to the back. But at some point reuse it. Like I used to be super active in online poker, and I followed all these people in poker. Now it's not relevant for me day to day, but sometimes I encounter something there, and then having this list just to find easily. I forgot the name, but I know he's in my list, and then I can easily go there, find this person. That's how I use lists,
But
as a
Thomas,
directory.
you got to admit you're probably better than most people when it comes to like productivity, organization. You're good at using tools like Notion. I think for me, and maybe Jonas can echo this with what he said, Twitter lists have become like the 2023 version of like buying a book. Like I spend so much time researching, I make the list, then I never use it.
That's a very, very good reference.
I have so many
'Cause
books in my home that I bought, and it's just never my Audible. You should see my Audible library. It's like just 0% progress bars down the line, and that's to me how I use Twitter lists. I feel like I did something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I was productive. Oh man, I'm so good. Look how I'm structuring my Twitter, man. My Twitter experience is going to be so optimized the next time I open Twitter.
Yeah. Then,
I mean, to
then
me, it's
actually,
just like
how I
since
end up finding people is I remember some tweet that I sent to somebody, because usually
Yeah.
good tweets I send them to at least one of my contacts, and then I know I sent this one tweet from this
Yeah.
guy to Thomas this one day, and then I look through our DMs, and that's how I find old
Yeah.
accounts. God damn
Yeah.
it.
Man, I'm so old school that I still send myself like Facebook Messenger messages with like links to shit. Thomas has like automated Notion files with like voice to
but
text and
but like there is to lists, there is one little growth hacky, I hate the term, but there is a little thing that you can do. So if you follow a person, especially if it's a bigger account on Twitter, going back to the question, actually, kind of, at least, if you follow the account, that is a weak signal, I would say, for most accounts, especially if they are bigger. But if they get added to a list, so if you do have a public list and you add somebody to it, the person gets a notification that he or she has been added to a list. And in that case, that is a stronger signal. People might check out, oh, what list is it? Who is the
yeah.
person adding me to it? And so it's a little thing to break through the attention or awareness threshold of accounts. But that's
Yeah.
just a little aside.
No, that's a good one. That's a good little tip. Like
Yeah.
adding people to lists is definitely like a growth hack. If you do activate that
I remember
feature.
that one time that I was added to a list, I definitely checked it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh shit, I'm important.
Yeah.
It was just a Bangladeshi bot. All right, guys. Is that a wrap?
Hey,
One more thing for Felix.
where
Sorry.
can our listeners? Oh, one more thing for Felix.
Yeah, one more thing
Go
for
ahead.
Felix. So I just wanted to shout out this Twitter account because you mentioned one Trung T fan. There's a guy's name is Soren Iverson. Soren makes his own mock-ups for like mock or funny or memey product updates, right? So just to give you an example, he created this do you guys know DoorDash? He doesn't really have anything like that here in
Yes.
Germany, but
Yeah.
DoorDash,
know
it's
it.
like yeah. So DoorDash, he created this like funny product update where DoorDash sends you a notification. It says bite request received. Can your dasher have a few fries? So he makes these like funny feature updates for companies, and he's been one of the fastest growing accounts. He's followed by like John Popliano and a bunch of other like big accounts already. And that to me is like a type of Thomas, you mentioned it. You have like meme accounts, which are like, videos of people getting knocked out and like dumb shit like that. And then you have like actual productive, smart, insightful meme accounts like this. So that's just another one you could check out. You can kind of blend something. I mean, this guy's a UI UX designer, right? So he found his unfair advantage, and he's taking these interfaces of popular apps and he's adding funny things. Like I think another one was like a Google Calendar, but everyone can
pay for a
vote.
slot or something.
Yeah. You've seen it,
Yeah,
Jonas. Like you could pay
I
for.
know that guy.
Yeah.
It's always like worst UX ideas. Something.
Yes,
There's a
exactly.
few very good ones.
Yeah. Where
Also,
it's like
stuff where you think like, please never do this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One
put
was
it
like
in the show notes as well,
Yeah.
Ron, when we publish it. I think that that is good.
What did you
to give
say it's
these
called?
examples.
Soren, Soren, and then Iverson, like White Iverson AI.
Yeah.
So, guys,
Yeah. That
where
is a
can
wrap.
people find you on Twitter?
People can find me at Ron Jardot. It's my name. I'll put it in the show notes as well. You can find Jonas at Jonas
S. Lebur. That is
S. Labor. That'll be in the show notes as well.
Yeah, put it in the show notes
Yes.
as well.
Yeah. You can find Thomas on many different lists that he has created. No, okay.
Yeah, that's true. No, it's just Thomas E.
Thomas E. At Thomas
Yeah.
E. Guys, if you're still with us in this episode, thank you. If you do have any questions, please head over to unyfy.io/podcast. Submit your questions. We will get to them as we did in this episode. We'll then reach out to you if we do answer your question and let you know that we did. We would appreciate if you gave it a share, a like, shared it with a friend. And yeah, thanks for joining me on this episode, guys. Please give this episode a rating, 5 stars on Apple or any other voting mechanism or rating mechanism on any platform that you do listen to this. Give us a like on YouTube and a share and subscribe.
And sign up to Unyfy if you want to
Sign up to
get into
Unyfy.
the creating
Yeah.
game.
All right, guys.
Bye.